Welcome to Leading with Curiosity. Command and control leadership is dead. We interview leaders, entrepreneurs, and executive coaches challenging old paradigms and fostering cutting-edge leadership. Here's your host, certified executive coach, Nate Leslie.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to the show. My guest today is Jenn Konopaki. Jenn is the Executive Director of Sport at Winsport in Calgary, Alberta. With over 20 years of experience in the sport and recreation industry, Jenn cares deeply about the role sports can play in our lives and the impact her leadership can have on her teams. She's invested heavily in her own leadership development as a believer in the value of certified executive coaching. It's not the only thing that's landed her on this podcast, though. We also share a journey as close friends from kindergarten to grade 12. Jenn, welcome to Leading with Curiosity. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Right on. Why don't you start just by setting the context of the role that you're in and what Winsport's all about?
I will. Before I do that, though, I have to acknowledge how fun it is to connect with you and go on this journey together. So that's special to me.
Right on. I'm proud right now too. Let's get her going. Thanks, Jenn.
Let's get it out there. So Winsport is the home of the 1988 Winter Olympics here in Calgary, Alberta. And today it is the legacy venues and facilities from those games. But over 30 years later, it looks quite a bit different. And it's an incredibly diverse campus of sport, active living, recreation, from a ski hill to 4 arenas, a gym, outdoor summer programs, downhill mountain biking.
Wow.
Events and food and beverage.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. When we connected, in my mind, I knew it was Canada Olympic Park. I knew where it was. And in the hockey world, it has become such a landmark in Canada. So like people, there's sport organizations, Hockey Canada is based there. Just tell us a little bit about the high performance side.
Yeah, a lot of national sport organizations and provincial sport organizations and clubs really are located here. They have their office space. This is sort of their headquarters. As you mentioned, Hockey Canada being one. And our mission is really discover, develop, and excel. So it's the continuum that exists here. When you look at the Canadian long-term athlete development model, it's every age and stage is active and well here, including that high performance. And a number of Canada's winter athletes train at the High Performance Training Center before they go on to the games.
I love that. You know, I work very closely with the Richmond Olympic Oval here in Vancouver. We run all their hockey programs, and it's a really awesome place to be. And that long-term athlete development model gets talked about and lived so much there. I think we don't have the hills you have, but we have some parallel philosophy and inclusiveness of that pathway from the community through to the Olympians. Is that right?
And I'm glad you brought up Richmond, because I think they're a brilliant example of the games are like 14 days, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're left with the infrastructure and the facilities, and how do you integrate them into the community and have them be part of that the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Yeah. And you have to reimagine how those facilities can then be repurposed, reconfigured to serve the community. And that's not easy to do. Richmond's a great example of doing it right, in my opinion, and what I've experienced.
When we're coaching there on the Olympic hockey rinks, to think, okay, there was for 14 days, this 400-meter indoor speed skating track, or whatever the distance is, you should know that. And you're looking up at the Olympic rings, I take my 7-year-old out he's just kind of getting into hockey, and we look around at this big space. And I have a feeling at Winsport, it has just this setting and the 88 games that I remember sitting with you in grade 5, watching them on a colored TV that somebody wheeled into the library in Carmen Elementary for us, like and there you are, there you are, the executive director of sport at the facility that, we kind of probably first fell in love with Olympics. Actually, have you ever thought about that?
You know what, Nate, I have not.
Okay. Well, when I put that
Yeah.
in context in your role now, what comes to mind?
Well, I think it speaks to the power of sport, right? It's a vehicle. It's a vehicle for everyone to realize who they are and what they can do, what they're capable of when they work hard and apply themselves and believe in themselves. And that's the essence of why I fell in love with sport. And that speaks to, yeah, it gives children and youth an opportunity to realize what they're capable of. Even if that's a healthy, active lifestyle, that's critical, that's just as critical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the foundation. That's the base of the pyramid. And if some happen to move on, isn't that awesome?
That's awesome.
And let's
I
support
can't
them.
even imagine what
Yeah.
it would be like to represent your country, right?
Yeah. Let's support athletes where they're at.
Yeah.
And the conversation you have with a recreational level athlete gets to be different than the conversation you're having with a high performance athlete. And if you don't ask questions, here we go on the leadership and the coaching thing. If you're not curious about the athlete you're talking to or the coach you're talking to, how much is missed, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, and what that brings up for me is, talking to a small child on a field or a sheet of ice and having them believe in themselves. That's leadership too, right?
Mhm.
And being that mirror back to this small child on a bike for the first or second time, or skates the first and second time, you could do this, and you're like holding their hand and you're creating an environment, which we do in leadership, and they can feel that we believe in them, and then they feel empowered. And that is what gets me out of bed.
That's not a metaphor, but let's consider that a metaphor, the way we conduct ourselves as coaches of small children, translating directly an evolution to the way you're leading the leaders in sport at Winsport. Just rattle off for me the great people you have on your team that I've had the privilege of meeting briefly. What sports do they represent right now?
Hockey, mountain biking, skiing, snowboarding are our main, but we also work with rugby players, football players, lacrosse, you name it. Yeah, quite a diverse offering of sport.
I love that. It's sort of rare occasion that someone gets to work with so many different sports and finding the commonality and the bonds between them, and also the unique opportunities within each sport. Most of us kind of live in our one sport once we get going as professionals. So tell me a little bit about your investment in your own leadership development over the years.
So I think I've taken every chance to engage in education, if offered, throughout the last 20 years. And probably, I remember early in my 20s doing a number of modules, leadership modules on how to, I think it was called Coach for Success. There's a number of them. And I remember just soaking it in and being like, wow, here's a formula, here's a template, here's a step-by-step process to work with people. And I took the training. It's easy to go through, training and not take it seriously. And I soaked it in, and then I started practicing. And then it was, a year later, I was like, wow, I'm actually doing this naturally now. I'm doing it without having to pre-plan, and I was getting the results. I was seeing people develop before my eyes. And this is early days, I would have been mid-20s.
Yeah.
See people develop and their confidence and increase. And I then became very hungry for it myself, because I was like, I love this. It fed me. When I saw them experience success, I wanted to develop my skills more to be able to have a bigger impact. And so that was the start of the journey. And then most recently, I've just completed my executive leadership program through Queen's Smith School of Business out of Kingston. And that, I did a lot of research because I was considering doing my MBA. I looked at a number of different programs, a number of different institutes, and I ended up going with Queen's. And that program was a springboard. It changed everything. In a very concentrated week, in a course called Transformational Leadership, I realized who I am, and I realized my executive coach. We had an executive coach through the program. She looked at me and she read my assessment. You have to do a 360 and all this, and she's like, "You're soup to nuts. And Jennifer, where are you going? And what do you have your eyes set on?" And in that moment, I was like, I can do this. I can lead big change. And I love having an impact, positive impact on people. So the power of executive leadership and investing in yourself is, you can't put a value on that. And here I am in the position I am. And I do have moments where I'm like, how the heck did I get here? Like, am I qualified? But yeah.
You and I reconnected after a few decades of being apart with our friends from Carmen Collegiate on a grad Zoom reunion in the middle of a pandemic. And I didn't say to myself, how the heck did you get there? But I thought, that is so awesome where you've taken your career. And that I'm really proud of you. And that through line of coaching and thirsty for development and self-awareness is what made me think Jenn needs to come on this podcast and share this with other leaders. And I'd just like you to tell me like a little bit more about that. Just expand on that discovery and that experience at Smith and working with an executive coach.
Well, it was confidence, really, because when I did the self-assessment and I realized, so let's just use introvert versus extrovert, right? So you go through this assessment of all the different profiles and getting a sense of who you are. And you're typically on, and they give you a scale. And so you're typically on the far end of the scale as an introvert, or the opposite, being an extrovert, as an example. And I realized through all of these different categories and profiles that I was down the middle, which is not normal, right? And so at the end of the day, my executive coach at the time said, you're really balanced. Like, you're really balanced and you can flex and adapt where you need to based on your audience. And in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh. And I realized that really early on as a leader in my 20s. I was like, you got to be a chameleon, right? Your job is to be a lizard, and you go around and you change your skin color based on who you're with, right? They don't change. You change as a leader, because it's your job to mirror back to them who they are, where they're at, and where they can go, right? So you have to be the adaptable one, not who you're working with, right? And then they're on their own journey. And I've always done that. And I've always valued leaders that have had the ability to adapt on that learning journey with their people. And then when I saw it on paper, on a professional profile, I was like, holy smokes, that says a lot. And now I can see who I am and how I show up and why I show up the way I do. Right. And why I get the success I get, right? Because I have so much capacity, and this is me learning to be a vulnerable leader. I love the people I work with, Nate. I love them.
Awesome.
I genuinely want the best for them. I want them to grow. I want them to go above and beyond me, way beyond me. Like, I'm just an instrument. I'm a tool, and I'm on their path, and it's my job to see them shine and grow and go. Right. And so that's where I get so happy. Like, I just am so fulfilled by that.
I can see the energy in you just describing that. And that is your superpower, that chameleon, the ability to adapt. I love how you said, for a skeptic who was wondering where you're headed with that, to be there, to mirror back to them how they see themselves, and to be there for them is so powerful. It's, the old saying from, I guess it's the Bible, treat others how you'd like to be treated, but rather modern leaders treat others how they would like to be treated.
Yeah.
And an old school hockey coach tried to treat everybody equally and the same. And a modern leader needs to treat everyone fairly and differently.
Yes.
Those are the things that are coming up for me as you describe that ability to adapt for your audience, whether it's an audience of 1 or 20 or 100, right?
Yeah. And what that brings up for me, Nate, is the ability to speak the truth, right? I think that is part of that coaching and mirroring, is when you sit down with someone and you're focused on their development and where they can go, or where they need to go, or where they're stuck. You have to be able to speak the truth. Like, you do it with kindness, and you do it considerably, like with consideration around them. But that is a weapon, speaking the truth, right? And I've sat down with some of my leaders and been like, okay, what's going on here? Like, something's not right. We need to get to the root. And this is what I'm observing. And let's talk about that, right? Like, I'm not interested in fluff. Like, I want to go right down into the essence of like, what is at play here? And then that means going deep. You got to go deep with people. And that takes capacity, because not everyone's ready to get real fast.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable.
So that leadership circle would call that your courageous authenticity, which is actually an area of development for me. So what's tip, trick, step by step, were the words you used early on in describing your leadership journey, in having those difficult conversations in a way that are really effective and to the point and thoughtful?
What's coming to mind for me is maybe a profound experience I had or in my own leadership around truth, that then, well, whether it is or isn't this is coming to mind, so I'll share it. So I had a life coach when right before I worked with summer sport for 10 years. And then I applied for a job here at Winsport. It was a manager job. And then I've been here almost 10 years. And so when I went from, the first leg of the journey to the second leg, I had a life coach right in the middle of that. And I swear, Nate, that if I hadn't had that life coach and I didn't have the experience I had, I never would have experienced the success I'm having now.
Wow. And
so what I learned, so she took me through, I think it was a wheel, like an exercise of your life, right? And the balance here, there, and everywhere. And through her coaching, I realized at that point in my leadership development that I was taking too much responsibility for too many people. So I had a team, and the team did well. That was a reflection on me. If the team didn't do well, it was a reflection on me. And if a certain individual was not doing well, I had a part in that. And so the point is, I was taking on way too much responsibility. All right, way too much responsibility. And through that coaching, she took me back to an experience in my youth where my dad sat me down and he had a conversation with me about something in our family. And I saw my dad take the weight of the world on. And I must have picked up that behavior where I'm responsible and for everybody and myself. And I'd been carrying that around in my leadership journey. It was a crutch.
Wow.
It was a crutch.
Wow.
I couldn't let go of work. I couldn't let go of people. I couldn't let go, right? Because I was inserting myself without any self-awareness and any realization. And then if I would have gone from that facility and that career to where I'm at now, which is a lot bigger, I would crumble. Right? Yeah. And through that coaching, I realized no, that's not my values. That's not the way it works. And
Yeah.
I don't want to exhibit that behavior. And I'm free. I can be free. And so I literally felt this weight lift off me. And I went into this new, went into my new job with this new employer. And I walked around and things would go sideways. And I'd be like, okay, well, let's deal with it. We'll figure it out. Right. Because I was then not responsible. I'm only responsible for me.
Right.
And that's very empowering. So
I can see you say that with conviction and this, with this confidence that if you were leading me, I would feel like, oh, wait, I got to pick up my bootstraps because Jen's taking responsibility for Jen. That means Nate's taking responsibility for Nate. I just had that feeling. Yeah. Thumbs up.
It's thumbs up. And you and I talked about that, right? Where I'm like, get in the boat. Like,
Right.
It's like the Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
Get in the boat. I'm in the boat. You get in the boat. I'll help you. I'll help you. But to a certain extent, like we all, and so back to your original question, that's why you have to speak the truth. That's why you have to, get real with people and help them take responsibility and accountability for their life and their actions.
That can scale. The other way can't. The other way of the weight of the world, you can only hold so much. But what you're describing, you're the size of your team, the scope of your problem sounds like it can scale. And that's how to scale your leadership is the key to developing as a leader and growing into new roles.
Yeah.
Segue maybe, Kaizen.
Yeah.
Tell me about plan, execute, review.
Okay. So I worked with Dr. Stephen Norris as my first VP here at Winsport. And that was one of probably the first operational practices that I adopted from him, which was brilliant. So we need to run these cycles annually or, quarterly or even just within one project. So you plan upfront, lots and lots and lots of planning. If you do that correct, execution is easy. And then review is critical, right? So critical to then look back, what worked, what didn't work, why, what do we need to carry forward, what do we need to learn? And then you run the cycle again. And the whole concept behind that is Kaizen, which is a Japanese principle of constant improvement. And since Steve put that out there, it's our industry now. It is in sport. And I hear a lot of sport leaders use it, and it's brilliant, right? Because you're constantly in practice of learning, growing, adapting, adjusting, and whether it's on a micro or a macro level, if you will, and that's constant change, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we've taken it further, which I love when working with children and youth, and fail forward, right? There is no mistakes, right? Just like it's about that constant learning and reflection, whether you're again on your bike, on your skis, on the ice. And that's the culture and the atmosphere that we try to create with our instructors, is like we celebrate failure. We celebrate it. It's like, yeah, okay,
Nice.
Pick yourself up. Let's
so that
go.
transcends from planning a sport camp. That actually transcends right through to how the athletes are feeling as they bail, as they find success, as they land that jump. That's awesome. Because when you said you can use it annually or quarterly, it sounds like it becomes a way of being, and it just is who you are in any given moment. You're in one of those stages, and get to the end, you hit repeat. This is bringing up for me something that I've picked up from my new partners, the Roy Group in Victoria, is that in the leader's journey, there is no expert, there's just people in practice. And if you add on that layer of the cycle and reviewing the planning, executing, and reviewing on top of this idea that you never arrive, you're just in practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what that brings up for me is humility, right? So there's not enough humility, and I value it tremendously. I think it's critical. I mean, who's got the answers, especially in today's environment, right? And I think it's so empowering as a leader to be able to say, like, I don't have the answers. I have no idea. Like, help me. Like, and leverage the group, empower the group, right? And that next generation to step up and step into that, and then model that type of leadership, right? Which I believe sets an excellent example. Those are the best athletes. We don't love the arrogant athletes. We love the humble athletes, the broken athletes, the overcomers, right? That's what gets the heart. And I think, the more as leaders we can create those types of environments for our people to thrive in is what's needed.
In a previous episode of this podcast, I interviewed Ryan Walter, 1,000 games in the NHL and a Stanley Cup, and the youngest captain of the Washington Capitals at the time. And I said, what's your most important leadership effective value? And he went to humility instantly. I love when you hear these through lines from people who are as passionate and interested in the topic as you and I. It's what happens when you say that you don't have the answers too, and when you require that collaboration and group think. A lot of research that we do at the Supporting Lines Institute too shows that, the metrics of workplace engagement and people feeling valued and all the things that are a part of a high performance culture, they have possibility to grow because of that humility. When it starts there, yes, the leader needs to set the vision for the organization. And once that's established, the rest, it's all correlated. It starts to fall into place, right? When you open. Yeah. And you said, especially in this environment, not only in this pandemic, but in this era of knowledge-based industries where things change quickly.
Yeah. And then on that note, vulnerability, right? So that has been gaining traction, right? I think with a number of leaders. And I agree, like to be able to put your guard down and just put your guard down and speak the truth and ask for help, right? You need to ask for help. That goes back to being a captain. It isn't about us. It never has been. It never will be. It's about the team, right? It's about the capacity of others. And that's leadership. Yeah.
I'm going to leave with this thought that leadership is about maximizing the capability of those around us. And I love how you said, it's not about us, it's about them.
And I can't leave this call without talking about empowerment, like the ability to inspire and motivate someone else, to elevate them, lift them up, make them feel like a rock star, tell them they're a rock star, and watch them grow. Like, just watch them grow.
I love it. It fills you up. It fills you up. I can see it.
Oh yeah. I just love it. I love it. Yeah.
Jen, one favor.
Yes.
When you pick up little bits of gold that just fire you up in that way in your leadership, send me a note, share it with me, would you?
I will do that. And right back at you.
Right on. I have a feeling
I get your emails every Sunday.
I have a feeling this isn't the last time we will do this. And I just, it's such an honor to connect in this way with you again after all of these years. And I want to thank you for taking time out of your reopening in the middle of a pandemic phase of Winsport. And thank you for taking the time, and your team is lucky to have you as their leader.
Well, thank you, Nate. And I have loved connecting with you. And every time I spend time with you, I feel inspired. I feel motivated, encouraged, and courageous to be who I am. And so thank you for mirroring that back, and lots of love at you.
Thanks for listening to Leading with Curiosity. Please share, follow, and rate the show so that other leaders can make positive change in the world. Connect with Nate at nateleslie.ca. And remember, the brain behaves very differently when encouraged to think rather than told to listen.